लिहाजा इन हालात को देखते हुए हमने ये फैसला किया है कि हम इस इलेक्शन 2024 का मुकम्मल बायकॉट करते हैं.
Important that you save your vote for the November election. We'll need your help in electing Democrats up and down the ticket. Voting this Tuesday only enables the Republicans in their quest to elect Donald Trump again.
President Trump is a total and complete dipshit.
That's former Pakistan Prime Minister Imran Khan boycotting elections, US President Joe Biden urging people to not vote in primaries, and former US President Barack Obama using swear words against Donald Trump. Is any of it for real? Of course not. Now I know you, my listener, are smart and discerning, but even the savviest amongst us might pause and wonder for a moment. Is that audio or video real? False information spread by misusing AI like deepfakes is a huge threat. This is according to a World Economic Forum's report in 2024. The technology is messing up our perception of what's real and what's not. It has the very serious potential to disrupt elections. It could cause widespread unrest, and yes, it will shake people's trust on information, media, and perhaps even the governments. Recognizing this threat, at the Munich Security Conference held recently, 20 technology companies like Amazon, Google, Meta, OpenAI, TikTok, and X signed a voluntary tech accord to work on developing AI detection tools. But they stopped short of demanding a prohibition on election-related AI content. Is this move sufficient? As over 40 countries head into elections this year, are the platforms and government prepared to handle the tsunami of AI-generated fake content that could potentially hit us? What can be done in such a short time, and what should be the long-term approach to combat this menace? It's Thursday, 29th of February. From the Economic Times, I'm your host Apurva Mittal, and in today's episode of the Morning Brief, I will try to decode all of this for you. So listen in. Most of us already know what deepfakes are. They're super realistic videos or audios made with AI, making it look like someone's saying or doing something they never really did. In a short span, a deluge of generative AI products have hit the market, and it's become more sophisticated than ever. All you need to do is input prompts to generate images and videos. You can use voice cloning app and speech synthesis. Fake content that looks incredibly real is now easier, cheaper, and quicker than ever to produce. The secret sauce behind deepfakes are generative adversarial networks, or GAN. They learn from tons of photos and videos to understand how the person looks from different angles, how they talk, and how they move. One part of the GAN tries to create a video that mimics this person, while the other part tries to detect it if the video is fake. They improve each other through this competition, resulting in a very convincing fake video or audio clip. In India's election season this year, using AI for content marketing in campaigns like voice calls, SMS, creating digital avatars, personalized outreach, and AI-made multilingual social media content is seen as a $60 million market opportunity, according to an Al Jazeera report. I caught up with a 30-year-old high school graduate from Rajasthan who has turned making deepfake videos and audios into a career. The machinery behind producing this sort of content has spread to the grassroots in India.
My name is Divyendra Singh Jadon. I'm the founder of Polymath Solutions. We have two verticals. One is the Indian Deepfaker and the second one is Vision Dub. I started learning this tech and I just started uploading that on my new Instagram account. My main idea was that I just wanted to create parody videos, like what if scenarios putting faces of Hollywood celebrities onto Indian serials or Indian shows. Then after 6 months, I got my first client. It was a company based in London, and that was first time then when I came to know that I can earn as well using this.
You said you have two verticals. What does each of the vertical do, and what kind of clients do you have? What are the charges, for your different services? Just take me through your business.
We are not diving deep into deepfakes right now. We have transferred, like we have switched our system to language translation, real-time language translation, dubbing, and these things for production studios. So we are not doing just deepfakes. We are like now doing lip synchronization, voice cloning, like real-time conversational AI agents. So basically, we are doing AI integration into the existing systems, whether it is for production houses, whether it is for politics, anything. Earlier, it used to take us like 7 to 8 days in order to create a 1 minute deepfake video, but now people can just create these kind of videos in just 3 minutes.
Talk to me about elections and politics. You, I think, had a political party reach out to you in the recently concluded state elections in November last year. Can you
Yeah.
tell me, when did political parties or candidates start reaching out to you, and what kind of work have you done for them?
Okay. During the month of October and or November first week, there was a sudden surge of calls regarding and queries regarding political deepfakes and political AI integrations, different kind of queries we started getting. And most of them were like ethical, some were unethical. There were some people who used to reach out to me from a different number, from like a virtual number, and these kind of people were requesting some unethical requests, like swapping the face of their opponent leader on some different video. There was a guy, he called me and he told me that he has a video of his political leader, and his opponent also has the same video. He said that we want you to swap the face of the real person on the real video, but you have to make it look AI generated. So there should be artifacts so that we can deny. When it is
Oh
spreaded, we
God.
will spread this deepfake video more than the original video, so that we can deny this is a deepfake video, that you can see the artifacts. The day we started creating, these deepfake videos, we have started getting unethical requests from that time only, be it like pornographic videos, be it like crypto scams. So there was so many people from all over the world. They reach out to us using WhatsApp, and they ask us to, do you have Telegram channel? Can we talk over there? So we get to know that he's definitely be asking for an ethical request. So at that time, we used to say no.
So, did you create videos for any political parties? And can you also tell me about your pricing?
So currently we are doing political campaigns for different political parties. Some are in the conversation only, and few we have closed the deal for some, but we are like bound by the NDAs. I cannot name the party, but yeah, we are doing this personalized messaging campaign for political workers only, for the party workers, not the voters. And we are also doing like conversational AI agents. We are working on like AI chatbots in Holobox. So there is a new hardware tech which is a holobox. So it's a kind of box, and a person can people, it seems like a person is inside that holobox, but he is sitting somewhere in his home or somewhere else, and people can see him interacting with people real time. Our main product is personalized messaging, and we charge around 8 rupees per video. But before that, there's a lot of process goes into it. So first we have to clone the voice. For voice cloning, we charge 60,000 rupees. For creating a digital avatar of the celebrity or the leader, and the WhatsApp integration cost is around 1 lakh. Once this is created, so this is 2 lakh 60,000 is a fixed cost. After that, for social media videos, we charge 8 rupees per video.
Do you see your business getting a big bump in revenue because of election season?
Yeah, for this Lok Sabha election, not for the assembly elections, but for Lok Sabha elections, there is a huge surge of request we are getting from political clients, political parties. We are not directly connected with the political parties, so these are the PR agencies and the political consultants that reach out to us. Currently, we are also confused because they have not given us the guidelines. Some party leaders want this for voters for a large scale, so we are not doing this currently. See, for political party workers, we are okay with the party workers, but for voters, we need to have consent, and there are so many ethical issues. I even don't know what implications it can have once we do these kind of stuff.
Based on the requests you've received so far and your understanding of the landscape,
Hmm.
how do you think uh, the voters will be manipulated using AI and deepfakes in the upcoming election in India or outside India?
When it comes to videos, so it's a human tendency to believe what we see, right? I believe it could possess a big risk. A few months back, I created an account on a channel, Moj. So its user base is from tier 2, tier 3 cities. And I posted a video of a Hyderabadi comedian, and I swapped the face of Salman Khan onto him. And it was such a bad deepfake that I thought that if anyone sees now, everybody will recognize it's a deepfake video. And we have written that this is a deepfake video, but I got 300 to 400 messages, and most of the comments, they believed that this is real Salman Khan, and they started posting their number. Bhai, call me, I am a big fan of yours. Bhai, give me money. And these kind of, so that time I got confused. Like, there is a big large chunk of our Indian population which doesn't even know about this technology, and these kind of videos persist. So it can pose huge danger. So something which aligns with my preconceived notion, I won't do a fact check. I want to believe it, whether it's fake or not. I'll spread it. So this is a normal tendency of us. So this is the case.
Divyender hits a crucial point. Is deepfake content the final straw in a post-truth society? A society where emotions and beliefs trump facts. In a story I did with my colleague Indulekha last month, former Chief Election Commissioner O.P. Rawat warned that misuse of AI will pose a major threat in the coming general elections. And the government has even been talking about bringing in new rules, but they aren't here yet.
However, our approach towards AI regulation, or indeed any regulation, is that we will regulate it through the prism of user harm. In the next 6 months, hopefully, fingers crossed, we should have a broad understanding among countries of the world, if not all, but most, about what ought to be the guardrails, what ought to be the legal guardrails and accountability framework for AI platforms.
In December 2023, the Ministry of Electronics and Information Technology issued an advisory mandating all social media platforms to communicate to users clearly about prohibited content, particularly those specified under the IT rules. This rule is designed to help platforms quickly spot and take down any false information, misleading content, or fake material pretending to be someone else, including deepfakes. I spoke to Nikhil Pava of Medianama about how political parties are using deepfakes in India and whether we are equipped to deal with this technology. Nikhil, can we start with a few examples of negative usage that you've seen in last few years or months related to AI deepfakes and how it's being used by political parties in India or abroad?
There was an instance of a deepfake of Karunanidhi applauding a Tamil Nadu politician for launching his book. Globally, we've seen Imran Khan use deepfakes very effectively. He is in jail, but is able to campaign publicly on social media through a deepfake that mimics his facial movements and his voice. So we are heading into an era where deepfakes will be used far more pervasively, both positively and negatively. And while we haven't seen the negative use cases in India to that great an extent, I think it's only a matter of time once election campaigning begins that we start seeing more of that. So a lot of the usage of disinformation and misinformation and deepfakes will depend on location, will depend on timing. And so they become very, very difficult to counter. You had the Prime Minister of India also speak in in a non-native, on a language that's non-native to him, using the Bhashini AI tool. Now, that's a positive use case of AI. You had Shah Rukh Khan in the Cadbury's ad suggest that people buy Cadbury's chocolates from their local store, and that was usage of a deep fake technology where someone could just input their name and,
Wow.
and the name of their store and the location of their store, and a special ad would be generated for that store. These are all great use cases. So I'm not saying it's bad tech. I don't think but the negative use cases are going to hit us. That's the problem.
Apart from deepfakes, do you see any other form of generative AI or AI technology showing up in the upcoming elections in India?
I think AI is and algorithms are already in use in terms of customizing messages, customizing advertising text. So these are all tools that are already in use and they have been in use for a while. And politics quite often leads the way when it comes to tech. If you remember, we also in 2014 had the prime minister use holograms to be at multiple places at multiple times. We are going to see more usage of tech. It's already in play, but I think we're also going to see more positive and negative usage of deepfakes. And that's going to be a big challenge for the election commission.
The Model Code of Conduct is a set of guidelines intended to regulate political parties and candidates during elections to ensure that the conduct of polls by the Election Commission of India is free and fair. There have been questions always raised on their enforceability. Does it make sense at all to expect that the Election Commission will have guardrails for something as advanced as AI?
So I think the election commission is still kind of stuck in the 90s of the last century, to be honest, because the fact is they don't have the capacity to deal with the scale to enforce a model code of conduct. A political analyst I was talking to was saying that, what political parties do is that they choke the election commission with a vast number of complaints. And by the time they're able to actually address the complaints and they're never able to address all of them, it's far too late. So I think as much as a technology issue for the election commission to deal with, and what they eventually do is that they pass the buck and the responsibility to social media platforms. And, all social media platforms during elections run war rooms to deal with these things. I think we're fortunate that our elections are happening this time in the early part of 2024 because the pace at which this technology is evolving, the 2029 elections would very easily be overrun with the scale at which this has happened, because with the tools that we're seeing are becoming more and more sophisticated and more easier to use. And, especially with politicians, a lot of their imagery and their voice samples are publicly available. And, I remember during the India signing campaign, we used to get calls from Mr. Vajpayee saying, "Main Atal Bihari Vajpayee bol raha hu." You can now get personalized calls from the prime minister during this election campaign. That's also deep fakes from a campaigning perspective. It's a positive use case. But in the same vein, you can also, someone can release using the same data and a false message going out from him and target it to a particular community. Like if you go back to Russia's disinformation campaign in the 2016 elections in the US, some part of it allegedly was that they went to certain Facebook groups and told people not to vote offline, but saying you can just fill up this form online and vote. I think that we need more capacity at the election commission level, at each booth level. And for them, it's a huge task.
And so, Nikhil, of course, one thing that is emerging from our conversation is that in AI and generated AI content deepfakes, they sort of amplify misinformation and disinformation. This has been happening for many, many years now. There have also not been any conclusive studies yet to show how this can materially impact, elections or perception. But in your opinion, do you think AI is merely an amplifier of existing threats, or does it pose any new threats to this whole information ecosystem?
I think AI is both. It amplifies because deepfakes are more believable, right? And the reach increases alongside that. So in that sense, AI, because you're more likely to trust an AI output than you are, let's say, something that's not visual in nature, amplification is bound to happen. And AI enables that amplification. AI can also enable personalized targeting at scale based on certain personality traits, which we have seen Cambridge Analytica was hyped for in terms of targeting. And the inverse impact is also just as worrying. We are going to enter an environment of distrust where, because everything will look like a deep fake, or we'll be suspicious of everything that we see, because we're not able to separate the fake from the truth ourselves, we won't know what to believe. So I think it's a very, very troubling time for democracies, and especially electoral democracies going forward.
A troubling time for democracies indeed. As so many countries, including the US and South Africa, head into an election year, how are they thinking about generative AI and deepfake content? Are we seeing early signs of deepfakes affecting voter decisions? I pose these questions to Sam Gregory, who is an executive director of Witness, a global human rights and civic journalism network which helps people use video and technology to defend human rights.
I'm Sam Gregory, and I am the executive director of a group Witness that is focused on how to prepare better globally for deepfakes, and I'm based in New York, USA.
Sam, could you quantify the risk of deepfakes for in the upcoming elections? There are going to be 40 plus elections globally.
So we're entering a very challenging moment in terms of deepfakes. They've been overhyped in previous years and previous elections. But in this coming year, we have a combination of technical progress that makes it far easier to make a range of deepfakes. We have innovation, in quotation marks, by political actors and others to try and use it, both to deceive, but also for political campaigning. And we also have these tools available very easily in commercially available tools and very cheaply. So the combination of this suggests that we're going to have an election year where there are many more uses of both potentially positive uses of synthetic media tools, for example, for voter outreach, but also really negative tools done both by political parties, but also by unofficial actors. So if we start to look at the first elections that have taken place in, for example, Pakistan, Bangladesh, and of course, early signs in the US and India.
Can you talk a little about the early sign that you've seen in Bangladesh, Slovakia, and Pakistan?
What we've seen in, let's take Slovakia. That was a faked audio call within the last days of an election, and it simulated the voice of a key candidate. And the risks there is it's just got trivially easy to make fake audio. And listeners in India will know that as well, because fake audio is everywhere. Also, we have what we think of at my organization Witness as an equity gap in access to detection tools. What that means is journalists and fact checkers and election officials don't have access to the really good tools to do the detection. So the people we should depend on to say, wait a second, that is fake audio, let's really publicize that, often don't have the tools. In the candidate search or the candidate elections in New Hampshire, where he was trying to encourage people not to vote in those elections, right? And then what we've seen in contexts like Bangladesh and Pakistan is simulated videos of candidates, for example, saying to their party members, don't vote for my party or vote for the other party, which are taking advantage of that it's got much easier to do what we know as things like lip sync dubbing. That's matching the voice and the face, so it plausibly looks like someone is saying something they never did.
Sam, recently major tech companies like Amazon, Google, Meta, Microsoft signed a voluntary tech accord, and they promised to work on developing AI detection tools, but they stopped short of demanding a prohibition on election related AI content. Do you think this is sufficient?
I was watching the agreement, and it really sort of sets a floor rather than a ceiling. Let's put it that way. So what I mean by a floor is it does raise the bar on what they're voluntarily committing to across the sector, which is good, right? So they are saying we're going to try and standardize and make available ways to understand the recipe of how AI was used in making synthetic media and deepfakes. So you as a consumer or regulator will be able to much more easily see in a piece of content how AI was used. Now, those systems are not yet fully evolved. They're not going to be deployed across the ecosystem during this election year. I think what it points to is that there's a few areas there that are really critical intervention points that companies can do, but we also need regulation that reinforces those. So, for example, a lot of the regulatory approaches globally are looking at this idea of media transparency. How do you know, when I look at a video, how do I know that AI was used? Either because it labels it or visibly discloses it or provides a level of information within the media that can show me what happened. And so all the agreements are pointing that way. They're pointing towards detection. I think what we need as well is, of course, to think about what is the regulatory environment, about what is banned in this space and what is permitted, and also how this is reinforced across the whole ecosystem. These systems don't work if it's just the platforms doing it, but not the people who are developing the AI models or deploying them in other ways. So, the responsibility of government is to really make sure we have accountability across this whole AI pipeline, so that we as citizens and consumers can have access to a much better understanding of it.
Any government or regulatory body that has made any meaningful strides to combat deepfakes anywhere in the world?
I think there are two examples I would point to. One I see as a negative example, which is China has passed a range of regulations in this that really are, targeting who makes a deep fake and really demanding identity be linked to your act of media creation, which I think is a very dangerous principle in terms of freedom of speech. They're also targeting satirical speech with deep fakes, which is, of course, a very powerful form of political expression. But they have moved forward with regulations in this space. The other example to look at, which I think is a more democratic example, is the EU AI Act, which looks at particularly deep fakes and says, we need an obligation from the deployers of these systems to label and disclose that AI has been used, and to do that within the bounds of freedom of expression and satirical speech and artistic speech. That's not yet implemented. That'll take a significant amount of time to be implemented. Some legislative proposals say things like the platform should detect all AI. That is a terrible idea. The platforms don't do a great job doing content moderation overall at a global scale, and they won't be able to detect this reliably at scale. And that will lead to all kinds of false positives and negatives that will impact our confidence more broadly in communication. And it's a responsibility and a power that we shouldn't put in the hands of the platforms without thinking about that first.
So, Sam, many elections are around the corner now. We don't have much time. What do you think we can do to deter the proliferation of such content? Is it possible to take any steps now, or will we have to just see how things unfold?
I think the reality is actually that even in the early stages of the elections in the US, we've had less deepfakes and synthetic media than in India. India, in many cases, is really the place where a lot of the pioneering techniques are playing out for good and for ill in this election year. Yes, and I know in India there's been, in some sense, a rush towards deepfakes legislation. It was a headlong rush at the end of last year, and I know it's a priority. I think we need to be careful about the rush, right? Because when we craft deepfakes legislation, we obviously want to make sure we're not crippling the ability of people to communicate, targeting people who may use it for dissident purposes or for legitimate satirical or political purposes. So I'm cautious about a rush towards this. There are obviously existing laws in most countries that are used around misinformation, non-consensual sexual images. The problem is they don't tend to be scaled very well for deepfakes, and they often tend to be very targeted and sometimes politicized in their use. So I don't think existing laws often serve very well.
It sounds like the detection tools have not caught up with the sophisticated technology that we have now. So even though it may have metadata, it may have that watermarking, there is a way around it to remove all of those details. What are your thoughts on that?
So detection is never going to be 100% effective. It's probably going to be, in the best case, 85 to 90% effective. And what I mean by that is, I see a video, a photo, or an audio, it comes across my internet feed, and I'm trying to work out whether it is fake or not, or whether someone's claiming it's fake in order to dismiss reality. Detection tools are flawed, partly because it's an adversarial context to make fakes and to try and detect them. So it's constantly going back and forth. It's partly also because many detection tools work just for one way you make a deep fake. They work for just one approach. Inherently, they can be flawed by or fooled by counterforensics. So that's why it's really important to have skills around detection tools and to use a range of them. And in many cases, I think they're going to be best used by people who have expertise, like journalists and others, rather than the everyday public. Now, watermarking is something you do beforehand, right? So there are a number of techniques you can use, when you create an AI image or when you share it that add data, either a watermark that's really baked in or a set of metadata. And those are removable, right? Like, with some effort to remove a watermark, or more easily with the metadata that, says this was made, on the 27th of January by, using an Adobe tool and then shared and edited on X, right? So I think it's best to think about those tools also as a form of harm reduction.
You have long experience when it comes to AI and deepfakes. Have you been fooled by anything recently?
I'm regularly fooled because I'm an ordinary
Okay.
person who's in my social
Right.
media feed and watching stuff. So I was fooled by the Pope in the puffer jacket, right? Like if we remember that
Okay.
image, I was fooled
Yeah,
at
yeah,
first.
yeah.
I was like, that's a really cool image. So I think
Yeah.
it's really important that we not blame ourselves on this. I've been fooled. We all will be. So it can't be on us as individuals to be fooled by something that looks fun or engaging or convincing.
I guess, does that mean that we sort of take it upon us to research things a bit more before we believe them?
I do think it's the critical first stage of media literacy. I know
Yeah.
it's the hardest one. I use the acronym SIFT in my own media literacy practice from the academic Mike Caulfield, and the first letter of SIFT is S for stop, right? Stop. It's too good to be true. You need to then think, where did this come from? Are there other sources? Is there an original? For example, is this a manipulated image or video? So I do think we need to think about that. And we need to have these signals, which is why it's really important that, for example, we be able to know if something incorporates AI, because then we can make a decision whether the AI made it funnier, more amusing, more entertaining, or whether it made it more deceptive, more emotionally manipulative.
Just out of curiosity, what is IFT in the SIFT acronym?
Stop, investigate the source, find alternative coverage, trace the original. And it's a good media literacy approach. I'll say the one problem on it is in the age of AI, sometimes we don't have an original, right? And that's what makes it hard often is that you can't trace the original because someone never said that. Someone never did that. That event never happened. So that makes that more complicated than with, say, if you have a recycled image or video of an existing event where you can trace it back and say that took place in that state in 2019, not in this state in 2020. But with AI, sometimes it's made out of whole cloth.
To be absolutely clear, deepfake technology is not all bad news. Far from it, in fact. As Nikhil pointed out, there are plenty of positive use cases for this, even in elections. Like using audio cloning to translate a politician's message into different languages, broadening their reach within a community. But the negatives are scary, especially in the absence of rules. For that, social media platforms, which are a breeding ground for misinformation, are taking some steps. Meta said it will launch a European Union-specific election operations center ahead of the June elections by bringing together experts from across the company to focus on tackling misinformation and risks related to abuse of AI. YouTube says it will roll out updates that will alert viewers to synthetic content. Content creators on YouTube will be mandated to disclose if their content is AI generated or significantly altered. But as Sam pointed out, if history has taught us anything, it is that platforms cannot be fully relied upon for content moderation, especially given the scale of the problem. There is research that indicates that misinformation generated at the top from politicians is actually the gravest threat. With the rise of generative AI tools, this problem will only get worse as we struggle to tell apart what's real from what's not. That's it from my side. I'm Apurva Mittal, and thank you for listening to AI and Elections, Deepfaking Democracy, only on The Morning Brief. This episode was produced by Sumit Pandey and Vinay Joshi. Our sound editor is Amrit Redji. Our executive producers are Anirban Chaudhary, Anupriya Nair, and Arijit Burman. Thank you for listening. If you like this episode, do share it on your social media networks and with your friends. A new episode of the Morning Brief podcast drops every Tuesday, Thursday, and Friday. We are even dropping some special episodes on Wednesday, so watch this space for more. The Morning Brief streams on Amazon Prime, JioSaavn, Spotify, Apple and Google Podcasts, and of course, ET's own audio platform, ET Play. Have a great day. Goodbye and good luck. All clips used in the episode belong to the respective owners. Credits are mentioned in the description.